Hello, my name is Caitlin Garmer, and I am your nutritionist. I was referred to you because you were recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I would like to provide you some educational material on your new lifestyle and some of the lifestyle changes you're going to have to make to help control your type 2 diabetes. So today I've created a Carb Counting for Success worksheet. This will provide blood glucose control by counting your carbohydrates to help balance out your meals to make sure your blood sugar is not spiking too high or dropping too low. So I will go ahead and go over the worksheet I've created, or the educational material I've created for you. So what are carbs? You've probably heard of carbohydrates. These are sugars, starches, and fibers. They affect your blood sugar more than other nutrients. So the main nutrients you're going to be consuming are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. In order to maintain a relatively stable blood glucose level, counting our carbs can actually be a meal planning technique to help keep your blood sugars from spiking too high and dropping too low. So carbohydrates do affect your blood sugars more because as the carbohydrates are consumed, they're broken down into sugar, and sugar is going to affect your blood glucose levels. So by counting our carbs, we can help prevent that and maintain relative control of your type 2 diabetes. So in this worksheet, I have included foods that are containing carbohydrates. So a lot of times we think of grains. This includes breads, noodles, pasta, crackers, cereal, and rice. But on top of that, milk and yogurt can also contain carbohydrates because they do tend to have some sugar in them. Starchy vegetables like potatoes, corn, and peas also contain carbohydrates. Fruits, because they do have the natural sugars in them. So apples, bananas, berries, mangoes, melons, oranges, legumes, so dried beans and lentils. And then, of course, prepackaged snacks such as cakes, cookies, candies, and other desserts do contain carbohydrates. With that being said, it doesn't mean you have to eliminate everything from your diet, but these are the things that when you consume them, you do need to be aware that these tend to have more carbohydrates than some of the other options that are out there. So looking to the right side of the sheet, how much should you eat? The goal is to be consistent on a day-to-day basis. So your carbohydrates play into an important part into your diet and should not be skipped. So you shouldn't fear carbohydrates. You definitely need them. But in order to prevent, these high spikes in your blood sugar, by counting them, we can help manage that a little bit easier. So for you personally, your daily calorie intake is going to be aimed to be about 12 to 1500 calories. Now, this seems a little low. I have targeted that we keep it a little bit lower in order to hopefully help you lose a little weight, which will help with your symptoms and help bring your complete body mass index down into a more normal range. So in order to keep your calories in that range, you should consume about 3 meals a day, and each meal should contain about 45 grams of carbs. And then on top of that, you should aim to do 1 snack a day that's about 15 grams of carbs. So on the next page, I go into a little bit more detail on how we're going to count carbs. So reading a nutrition label, it's important to adjust the carbohydrates based on how many servings you consume. And we want to aim to look at the total carbohydrates. So when we look at a nutrition label at the very top, you have the amount of servings per container and what a serving size is. So in the case of this nutrition label, if you were to consume this whole product, that's 4 servings, but our serving size is only half a cup. So if you consumed all 4 servings, you would have to multiply your carbohydrates by 4. But if you just consume a serving, then you would consume 13 grams of carbs. So you also want to aim to look at foods that are higher in fiber. Fiber-rich foods tend to cause a slower rise in blood sugar because they take a little bit longer to break down. There are such things as free foods. Free foods are foods that have less than 5 grams of carbohydrates. These also have less than 20 calories per serving. So they will not increase your blood sugar and do not usually count towards your total carb counting. So examples of these tend to be asparagus, beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, celery, cucumbers, lettuce, mushrooms, bell peppers, and zucchini. So a lot of your fiber-rich vegetables tend to be lower in carbohydrates. Also, when you're choosing your foods, you should aim to do lean proteins such as chicken breast and fish. Your fat should include some olive oils. Those are those should be consumed in moderation, but they do provide good fats, and tend to use some lower fat dressings. These can also, you can include sugar-free dressings, but you need to be careful watching the sugar-free options. The sugar-free options can be, those need to be consumed in moderation. Okay, so steps to counting carbs. So how are you going to go about doing this on a day-to-day basis? First, start by reading the nutrition labels. So 1 serving of carbohydrates is about 15 grams of carbs. As I mentioned before, for a meal, you should consume about 45 grams of carbs. So using nutrition labels, you can aim for that, and a snack should be about 15 grams of carbs. So our nutrition label over here on the left would be a great snack option. Be cautious of saturated fats and added sugars. These saturated fats are not that great for you, so you should watch those. And then added sugars can spike your blood sugar. And then make sure you multiply the total carbohydrates by the amount of servings you consume. With that being said, step 2 should be preparing foods. Using measuring cups can be a great tool to make sure you're consuming the serving size. Also, a food scale will be very beneficial for tracking the consumption of food and making sure you're consuming a serving size. And then use a journal to track your food. I know this seems like it could be a little bit of a hassle, but by writing down what you consume each day and maybe how many carbs were in that meal, it can help you plan out a little bit better. So your next meal, if you consume less carbs in one meal, you can kind of balance it out. And then try and be consistent. Like I said, for you, a great option would be 3 meals a day, evenly spread apart. Try and limit yourself to 1 snack a day, but don't try and make all these changes at once. Like, you can ease into this process. Don't feel like if you have an extra snack, it's gonna be the worst thing in the world. We want this to be an easy transition for you. So this is just what we're aiming to get to at the very end. Pre-planning your meals can be a great way to stay on track, and trying to eat the same amount of carbs each day. Just to keep it consistent, then you don't have days where your blood sugar is very high, days where your blood sugar is very low. I've included some resources on the left that can be helpful as you're transitioning. The American Diabetes Association, the Center for Disease Control, and National Diabetes Education Program. These can be very great to help you make the transition easy. And I'm here throughout this whole process. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to contact me. I will provide you with my phone number and my email, and I will be available every step of the way. So please let me know if there's anything I can do to make this an easier transition for you.